What's up, everybody? We are back with part two of our picks and predictions for the week one games, getting into detail about all the offseason moves, acquisitions, departures that face each of these teams coming into week one as we analyze each of the matchups. And let's start with my favorite matchup of week one, a rematch of the divisional round of the AFC playoffs. The Baltimore Ravens taking on the Buffalo Bills. Ravens won 12 games last year and ended up losing to the Bills in the playoffs, who ultimately lost to the Chiefs. Bills coming off 13 wins and a Josh Allen MVP. Really tight spread here is basically a coin flip game and a high scoring one at that with 51.5 total points. And you look at the offenses of each team, and there's no question why the total is so high. Looking at the Ravens first, offense is such a huge strength for them with the number one ranked running unit, the number two ranked passing unit, behind great pass blocking offensive line, Lamar Jackson coming off a career year. You can point to a little bit of thin wide receiver depth of the Ravens here with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman not being true number ones in a traditional offense, but they rely heavily on their tight ends as well. Mark Andrews and Isaiah likely to pick up the slack. They brought in DeAndre Hopkins from Tennessee, and then who ended up in Kansas City in the latter half of the 2024 season to help round out that receiving core. But this receiving core isn't supposed to look like most other teams because his passing attack isn't like when most other teams employ Lamar Jackson. This is such an ad hoc, ad-libbed passing offense, really utilized by Lamar Jackson's ability to scramble around the pocket and extend plays. And you have shiftier guys like Flowers and Bateman that are able to find open space as these plays are extended. You look at running back, I know I mentioned the great pass blocking offensive line, but a solid run block has been an MO of this Ravens team, and a solid run game behind Derrick Henry certainly helps as well. There is no lack of talent on this offense that would suggest these guys would regress this year in terms of offensive production. If anything, I think I'd like to see Isaiah Likely take a bigger step up in this offense as Mark Andrews gets a little bit longer in the tooth there and slower at tight end with all his knee injuries that he sustained in his career. And hopefully Lamar Jackson keeps playing his MVP caliber level, and you see a lot of fireworks from this offense again. From the Bills side, very similar story where offense is their huge strength, but not so much on necessarily the talent at wide receiver as well. You got Khalil Shakir looking to make a big step up this year, or Keon Coleman, one of the two, but these guys are trying to fill the void that Stephon Diggs has left a couple of years ago after leaving this team. James Cook at running back has been really solid in this last couple of years, really taking a step up. But they're going to need a little bit more, I think, out of this receiving core to make this offense go to truly the next echelon. This run offense last year was the number three ranked unit, but really more so because of the strengths of James Cook, not necessarily because of the run blocking ability of this Bills offensive line. If you remembered from the MVP ceremonies this past offseason, I think the only other Pro Bowler on this offense besides Josh Allen was Deion Dawkins, the left tackle of this team. So not a ton of, at least on paper, and recognized talent, but hopefully a lot of these guys can take a step up this year. I think that just speaks to how great Josh Allen has been with this team, being able to perform at the level he has, put up the number of touchdowns, yards, rushings that he can do, despite a lot of the talent that he's not afforded on offense that other teams do have. You look at the defenses of both teams, these teams, the Ravens have a clear edge. They've got a great defense all around, led by safety Kyle Hamilton, who they drafted out of Notre Dame, and then linebacker Roquan Smith, who they acquired from the Bears midseason a couple of years ago. If you're looking to point out a weakness on this defense, it's certainly the pass rush. Not necessarily something we're used to out of a Ravens team, but secondary has been their much bigger strength. Really good in the run defense as well, attributed to Roquan Smith, who is just all over the place and covers so much ground, but looking for someone to step up in the pass rush here. You know, I mentioned the secondary. I mentioned Kyle Hamilton at safety. They've got long tenured Raven Marlon Humphreys at cornerback, and they added another longtime Pro Bowler Jair Alexander coming from the Packers at cornerback too. So that should make this secondary even more scary. Not to mention they used their first round pick on another safety similar to what they did with Kyle Hamilton a couple of years back. So it's the secondary for the Ravens that is the scariest part of this defensive unit, not the front seven like you're used to in Ravens of days past. Looking at the Buffalo Bills defense, really tail in a little bit of the opposite end of that coin from the Ravens. Not a ton of bright spots on this team outside of the pass rush, which actually should improve this year as they lose Von Miller but pick up Joey Bosa to help fortify that front four defensive line. Other than that, they didn't make a ton of changes on defense. They didn't stack up that well defensively last year, which is ultimately why they had some trouble against the Chiefs in the playoffs. But the real crutch of this defense is their coverage unit, ranking second to last in the NFL last year. Part of that is because some of their guys were hurt, but getting a couple guys back from injury should help, but certainly is a long ways away from making this defense even above average coverage unit. I'd be a little bit concerned, and still will be a little bit concerned about this Bills defense. Add that all up together, and for me, even before doing this analysis, it was clear that I was going to be picking the Ravens this game. I think they're the much more talented team all around. I think there's still a lot of people out there that think that Lamar Jackson should have been the MVP last year and not Josh Allen, and they would be well within their right to believe that. I just have seen a pattern with Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, especially not showing up against big games, but that has not been the case in the regular season. I think the Ravens are the much more talented team. I think backed by a better running game, at least a better passing grade, and I think you can make the argument better passing weapons than the Bills have, a better defense, better run game, better coaching. A lot of things are going the Ravens' way here, and if the Bills are going to win this game, luckily they have a big home field advantage in Buffalo this game. If they're going to win, it's going to be all on the backs of Josh Allen, as it had been all of last year, and I just don't think that's sustainable against a team as good of a caliber as the Ravens are. Before we go to the next game, don't forget to like the video if you're enjoying it. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you check out part 1, check out all subsequent videos, and comment on who you're taking this week. Another game that I'm really looking forward to watching, another two playoff teams in the same conference. You get the Lions going to Green Bay and playing the Packers. Lions 15 wins last year, but a really disappointing loss to the Commanders in the divisional round of the playoffs. Packers with 11 wins and a poor showing in the playoffs as well. You look at this Lions team, it's not hard to see how they won 15 wins. They did a combination of strengths on both sides of the football, dominating the offensive line with by far and away the best offensive line play, especially in the run blocking department last year. Losing a couple key guys in the interior of their offensive line, but keeping Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell at tackle here is going to help solidify this rushing unit as a top 5 team once again. When you get guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery at running back too, it makes that offensive shine that much more. But it's not all about the running game with this Detroit team. They actually had the #1 receiving grade last year, on top of the #6 passing grade, led by Amon-Ra St. Brown, but a lot of help with Jameson Williams when he's healthy and or not suspended. Sam Laporta there at tight end, a great receiving option as well. The big question on offense this year isn't about any personnel on the field. It's about how this new look offense is going to function and operate without offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, who has since taken a head coaching role with the Bears. All the talent in the world, it's all going to be about the schemes that this new offensive play caller can draw up and coordinate for these guys. Nothing to do with talent. Jared Goff at quarterback, I think, has been a pleasant surprise since the trade from Los Angeles. He's been a top 10 quarterback undeniably since his tenure there. And when this offensive line has given him time, which they've done very often, he's shown the ability to make just about every throw in the book. So it's going to be very interesting to see what this offense can do with the new play calling scheme. But at the end of the day, this is still a Dan Campbell-led team, and this offense is always churned underneath him. You look at the secondary for the Lions. That's their big standout unit on defense, led by Kirby Joseph. They brought in Maddox at cornerback from Philadelphia and DJ Reed at cornerback from the Jets to help fortify this secondary unit, which I think is poised to be another top 5 unit again this year. Their front 7 is their bigger weakness here, but not necessarily in the pass rush department, led by Aiden Hutchinson when he is healthy. They brought in Tyleik Williams at D tackle to help. What's going to hurt this pass rush a little bit is Adarius Smith's absence from this team, but getting Aiden Hutchinson back from injury should more than make up for that. It's really the run defense that is the crutch of this Lions defense. On the other side, the Packers, they've got an immense amount of talent on offense, really stacking up well with the Lions, honestly. Josh Jacobs, their running back, has been great behind this really highly ranked offensive line. The Packers, for the first time since I think 2002, drafted a wide receiver in the first round, selecting Matthew Golden, a big target out of Texas. They still got Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, even Tucker Kraft is a sneaky good option at tight end. So there's no shortage of talent on this Packers offense, especially the receiving core. What this receiving core really does need to clean up, and hopefully Matthew Golden can help with that, is the ability to catch the ball and not drop passes. The last few years, this unit has been leading the league in drop passes, and it's really a detriment to this offense and slows things down when they start to get into rhythm with Jordan Love at quarterback. The other thing that slows down this team in the rhythm on offense, the only thing that I think Jordan Love really needs to improve upon is his intermediate throws. The short throws are pretty easy for most quarterbacks to make, including Jordan Love, and I've seen Jordan Love make some incredible throws deep downfield. Where I like to see him get a little bit more consistent is on those third and medium plays where you got to connect with your guy that creates a little bit of space. And every now and then when I'm watching him, he's off the mark on those intermediate throws, and that's the one area in his game he needs to improve upon. On the defensive side of the football for the Packers, they had a really great coverage unit last year, also being a top 5 unit, but they're losing 2 key guys in Jair Alexander, who I mentioned went to the Ravens, and Eric Stokes. So they had a great coverage unit. Without those 2 guys, I doubt that they can sustain the ability to perform at the level they had. Probably will still be an above average, if not average unit with some of the guys they brought in free agency, but certainly can't make up for the talent loss there between Jair and Stokes. But the real problem on this team, much more than the Lions have, is their run defense. This is a bottom 10 unit in the run defense department, and that really doesn't bode well for them as the Lions come to town again with that great offensive line and probably the best running back combo in football. Because of that mismatch here, because of all the talent they have in Detroit, I'm taking the Lions to go on the road into Green Bay on week 1 and take down the Packers. Again, I think it's all attributed to, one, a really great secondary of the Lions, which I think is going to repeat as a top 5 unit. The X factor with Aiden Hutchinson getting after the quarterback, even despite the solid offensive line play led by Zach Tom there in Green Bay. But what I think the real killer is going to be is the 1-2 punch combo of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery behind this great offensive line and run blocking unit. I think that's what's ultimately going to put the Packers away. Another good game here between 10-win teams in 2024 with the Houston Texans taking on the Los Angeles Rams in LA this year. Both these teams won their division, albeit a little bit of a letdown for the Texans as they wanted to see C.J. Stroud make another leap off of his tremendous rookie season, instead falling into a little bit of a sophomore slump. He's definitely poised for a rebound this year in his 3rd season here, but the Texans find themselves in a really tough spot in the running department. Not only having Joe Mixon out to start the season at least a few weeks, having a lot of question marks around Nick Chubb as running back 1, or having to resort to rookie running back Woody Marks, they also find themselves behind a bottom 5 run blocking unit and losing their stalwart left tackle Laramie Tunsil to the Washington Commanders. So not a lot of good signs here with this. Again, this offensive run unit, I think they're going to struggle early and often, unless somehow Chubb can come to even a shell of what he had been during his time in Cleveland, or Woody Marks can really step up early as a rookie. But at the end of the day, no matter how much talent you have at running back, when you have a bottom 5 run blocking unit, it's really hard to find great production there. I think that's going to be the Achilles heel of this Texans team all season long. What is the strength on this offense in Houston is their wide receivers. Nico Collins coming back from injury, and he's proven to be a legitimate wide receiver 1. They brought in a great complementary target in Christian Kirk, and they used a high draft pick to draft wide receiver Jaden Higgins. So this team in this unit should be really strong for C.J. Stroud to rely on when this offensive line gives him enough time to get these guys the ball downfield. As good as their wide receiver room is, the shining star of this Texans team is their defense, with really their secondary being one of the best in the league. They got two of the best cornerbacks in the NFL with Derek Stingley Jr., who's a true shutdown corner, and Kamari Lassiter, who's probably the best number 2 cornerback in the game right now. And then the defensive line, adding pressure to the quarterback in these passing situations, you got Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter that both ranked amongst the top 20 in pass rushing last year. If you can point to any tough spot in this Houston defense, it is their run defense, being ranked, I think, just below average last year. Didn't do a ton to address it, but when your defense is as strong in the secondary and you have a good enough pass rush as these guys have, you can overlook in a slightly below average run unit. So this is going to be a top 5 overall defense. I think the only few teams that have more complete defenses than the Texans right now are, you could argue, the Eagles, and certainly the Broncos and the Steelers here. Other than that, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a better defensive unit than what Houston's going to be putting on the field this season. For the Rams, another team here in this early on this card, stacked with offensive talent. You got Puka Nacua, who I think is truly one of the best wide receivers in this game, and an elite combo of separation, quickness, and strength. And then you're bringing in long-time wide receiver veteran Davante Adams, who succeeded everywhere he's went this in his career, albeit some of that is attributed to Aaron Rodgers. But that's got to be one of, if not the best, 1-2 punch at wide receiver combo this year, maybe outside of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase over there in Cincinnati. And then at running back, you have a really solid option there at Kyren Williams, who's been overperforming the last few seasons, even behind a subpar offensive line at times. The big question on offense is going to be Matt Stafford and really his ability to stay healthy this season, which isn't always the easiest when he's playing behind the the third worst pass blocking unit in football last year. They clearly know that they have a small window in Stafford's twilight of his career to keep winning with this team, already having won Super Bowl one with the Rams here in his tenure there. They added 3 veteran offensive linemen to help bolster this unit, but even then, this offensive line is average at best at protecting the quarterback. Luckily, first game of the season, Stafford should be healthy-ish and able to get the ball downfield to guys like Puka and Davante, and even that wide receiving core has some pretty good supporting cast for number 3 and number 4 receivers. The defense for this team really came alive in the second half of the year, led by rookie Jared Verse, fortifying both this pass rush and run defensive unit. And the weakness of this Rams defense is really in the coverage and makes them susceptible all year long. Didn't do a ton to address it in the offseason, bottom 10 coverage unit, and so that's what's going to hinder the this team this year. I think when I'm looking at it, if you were telling me these teams were playing in week 10 of this year, the edge would go to the Texans because, I don't think Matt Stafford is going to be able to play this season healthy, if not injured, all season long. But being that this team's going to be fresh in week 1, I like the Rams here with how well-rounded their offense is, with both a strong running game and 2 great wide receivers, and a very solid defense, again, with Jared Verse really making that team look great as his rookie season and kind of being the captain early and often. It's going to be a tight one. I could see this one going either way. Can certainly see this Houston secondary defense taking over. But I'm going to bet on Puka Nacua and Davante Adams, who are 2 elite wide receivers, to outflank this defense and then rely on, again, Kyren Williams in the run game to exploit the little bit of run defense inefficiencies that this Texans team has. This is probably my least confident pick that I've gotten in between picks or parts 1 and 2 of these 2 videos, because I really do love this Texans defense and think that single-handedly that they can win most games. But there is a real deficiency in this Texans team around the running game, both on their offensive line and in the running back department. And it's hard to win games against good teams, which the Rams are, when you are as one-dimensional on offense as I think the Texans are going to be this year, even with how great C.J. Stroud is projected to be. So for that reason, I'm taking the Rams in this game. This is a fun matchup here as you get 2 teams that swap quarterbacks in this offseason. Aaron Rodgers going from the Jets to Pittsburgh, and then Justin Fields going from Pittsburgh after being benched for Russell Wilson over to the starting quarterback role for the Jets. Pittsburgh won 10 games last year, and they were really busy in the offseason. I already mentioned Aaron Rodgers. They brought in DK Metcalf at wide receiver, swapping him for George Pickens, who's now in the Cowboys. Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey at cornerbacks are huge additions to this defense that was already one of the top units in the league last year. And then they brought in Jonnu Smith at tight end, who had some great success over there in Miami. This Pittsburgh team really needed the cornerbacks to be addressed, as they were the number 22 ranked coverage unit last year. Again, bringing in Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey, both at least one points of their career top tier cornerbacks, now very solid. Going up in pairing with Joey Porter, this cornerback group should certainly be above average, if not have the potential to be an elite unit here. Pittsburgh also has the scariest pass rush in the league, led by obviously TJ Watt, Cam Hayward on the other side of the defensive line, and then using a first-round pick on Derek Harmon really makes this defensive front four tough to stomach and face down. What you're seeing is a weakness on this Pittsburgh team, as it has been throughout the last years and decades, is offense compared to their defense being the relative strength. But even on offense, their pass blocking and their offensive tackle play has been pretty poor, and that's going to be a big question mark with Aaron Rodgers, who's a far cry from mobility purposes from what Russell Wilson and Justin Fields were able to do and improvise on this Steelers offense. An inability to pass block and an aging quarterback is not a great combo, and that's going to show up early and often, I'm sure, for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. To add insult to injury, I don't think that this offense, outside of DK Metcalf, has a lot of depth for the receiving options, which is going to make it even more difficult for Rodgers to make big plays like he's used to in his career, at least pre-Jets in his career. Another, lackluster point on this offense is you don't have a traditional number one go-to running back. Jaylen Warren kind of stepping up in that role. He's more of a hybrid scat back that's really good at receiving the ball out of the backfield. That's why the Steelers used their, third-round pick on Iowa running back Caleb Johnson, but very unproven there, and I think a lot of people are hoping for him to step up and assume more of that bell cow role as Warren falls into the third down receiving back role that he's used to in his career. I don't think that the Steelers are going to have a ton of options in availability at offense, especially if their pass blocking stays the way it has been. It'll be interesting to see what this offense can produce, but there's no denying that this defense will be smothering in all facets of a defensive unit this season. For the Jets here, only 5 wins last year, and they're actually losing a lot of key guys, and I'm not even talking about Aaron Rodgers. They're losing on offense Devontae Adams, as I mentioned, and then offensive lineman Morgan Moses and Byron Smith, which is going to really hamper the offense production for this team all around. And then on defense, I mentioned DJ Reed. They're losing Hassan Reddick at cornerback and Javad Kinlaw at another unit in that front seven. Again, this is a team that only won 5 games last year, and I think they're taking a step in the wrong direction, everything except getting Justin Fields at quarterback. On offense, up in the air with Justin Fields, who looked pretty formidable in Pittsburgh before getting benched, so we'll have to see what he can do on the Jets here, hoping for the best for him. The other question marks on this offense are the running back health of superstar Breece Hall when healthy, and then to see what they can do at wide receiver depth outside of Garrett Wilson. I think the lack of wide receiver depth is going to hurt this team too. Kind of puts them par for the course with the Steelers in this game. What's interesting with the Jets, and I think there's a lot of high expectations going into the last season, especially with their defense, they've got a lot of big names, Quinnen and Quincy Williams, Sauce Gardner at cornerback, but they ranked bottom 10 in every single unit except the coverage unit. I mentioned Sauce Gardner, former All-Pro and Rookie of the Year. That coverage unit was number 14. So this defense really struggled. Again, I think they lost a lot of key guys. I really am questioning the viability of the Jets this year. I think maybe outside the Saints, I'd pick these guys to have the worst record in the NFL. I think Pittsburgh defense absolutely crushes this Jets offense, and I like Pittsburgh here. Even with a lack of options on their offense side of the football, I just think their defense patches up a lot of holes against a Jets offense that is average at best. The way the Jets are going to win this game is a heavy dose of Wilson and Breece Hall, who both shown plenty of ability to make plays in their career. I'm just not sure this Pittsburgh defense is the right matchup for this Jets offense. I like Pittsburgh on the road to go here and win by 2.5 or more. Divisional matchup here, and one, if history proves anything, it will be a pivotal one throughout the season, as these NFC South divisional races have been tight year in and year out, especially between these two teams. You've got the Bucks taking on the Falcons. Falcons were the favorite last year to win the division. Came out to a hot start and faltered, ending up with 8 wins, letting the Bucks swoop in and take that division title, only to lose by a thin margin to the Commanders in the playoffs. Buccaneers have a tremendous amount of talent on offense, led by a great run blocking unit. I think the best run blocking unit in football last year. Let me check on that. The 5th best run unit in football last year, led by Bucky Irving as a rookie, really shining and stepping into a huge role for that team and making this offense turn the way that they did. At wide receiver, they got an aging Mike Evans that seems to never slow down, Chris Godwin coming off an injury, and then Ibuka, the first-round wide receiver from Ohio State, to bolster that wide receiver unit. I think the big question here with a lot of the guys on offense coming back isn't about, much like the Lions, not the talent on the field. Just about everyone's coming back. I think they've even added great talent in Ibuka, who throughout the season will get an outsized and bigger role. The big question here is they're losing their offensive coordinator, much like the Lions, and Liam Cohen, who's taken a head coaching gig in Jacksonville now. So the big question for me is, how does Baker Mayfield, how does this offense look without Liam Cohen calling plays? And that was yet to be seen until week 1. It's not the worst thing in the world getting a different offensive coordinator, but it's hard to believe that the next guy calling plays can stack up to what Liam Cohen was able to do and transform in this offense, really revitalizing Baker's career. But nonetheless, there's plenty of talent on offense. On defense, for the Bucks, defense was porous all around last year, and they really didn't do much to address it. That's why you saw this team in so many shootouts, relying on their offense to put up so many points to keep them in the game. Really nothing great to write home about. The only thing that was good about this team, good being relative, was their coverage unit, which was only slightly below average. Everything else, pass rush, run defense, overall defense, bottom 10 of the league here. So I would expect much of the same from the Buccaneers as you did last season. A lot of high-scoring affairs on offense, letting up a lot of points on defense, and ending up in shootouts most games. For the Falcons, they've got a top offensive line last year, even despite losing Drew Dahlman at center, heading over to Chicago. That bodes well again for Bijan Robinson coming into his 3rd year, where I think the expectations are sky high for this guy coming into this season, and I think they're warranted given the playmaking ability that he's shown in his first 2 seasons. Drake London really emerging as a wide receiver 1 for this team. I'm a little concerned about the depth in the wide receiver unit, as I think Darnell Mooney is a number 2, is a little weak. And then Kyle Pitts, a tight end, who, if you've watched football over, and especially if you play fantasy football over the last few years, has not even come close to living up to his draft hype. A lot in this offense is going to fall, and a lot of eyes are going to be on Michael Penix Jr. Coming in a quarterback at his 2nd year here after backing up Kirk Cousins last year. Penix had a ton of success at Washington in his final season, but I think there were a lot of questions on his ability to fit into an offensive system in the NFL. He's going to have his opportunity here, and I think he's going to have to rely a lot on Drake London, but someone else in this receiving core, including Kyle Pitts, is going to have to step up if he's going to be successful. This team's going to do what they did last year and lean a ton on the run game and Bijan Robinson, and then we'll see how that plays out for them in this game. And the defense for Atlanta, really tough front 7 here, with the pass rush last year being non-existent. They were able to muster up a top 10 pass coverage unit, really led by cornerback A.J. Terrell and safety Jesse Bates. And that's what saved this unit last year. But still a lot of holes in this team. And when all I can really point to is saying that their offensive line, Bijan Robinson and Drake London, are highlights for this team, it's clear to see why the Falcons won 8 games last year and are projected to fall around the same amount in this season. I will say, when teams play in the NFC South, I really think you can throw out a lot of the record books and talent, and I put a lot of stock into the home team because for some reason that I can't explain, more often than not, it seems like the home team comes out on top for one reason or another. But I'm going to stick to my guns here and take the Buccaneers. Despite their poor defense, I think there's defensive woes on both sides of the football. It's undeniable that their offense is well-rounded in every facet of the game there. And I think, again, as long as they can come close to the offensive production they had under former coordinator Liam Cohen, I think this offense is enough to surpass the Falcons in this game. Here's a game that I don't think most people are concerned about, with the Commanders, who had an amazing season last year. With the Commanders that had an incredible season last year at quarterback, far exceeding expectations, and the Giants here with another lackluster performance as well. I think everyone's looking for Jaden to take a step up this year and hopefully do what people thought C.J. Stroud would be last year and take a step up instead of step back in his sophomore season. At running back, they already shipped out Robinson Jr. to the 49ers, so you're going to see a little bit of change up there. But what's the great shining spot outside of Jaden Daniels at quarterback is going to be Terry McLaurin at wide receiver, who's been great for them. I think the real story in this game is the Giants and their quarterback switch up from Daniel Jones, who's now in Cleveland, to Russell Wilson manning the helm there. I think a lot of people are expecting Malik Neighbors to take another step up at wide receiver after really shining last year. But other than that, and maybe the addition of Cam Scatterbo at running back, this Giants team remains largely the same, with a below average defense but above average pass rush with guys like Kayvon Thibodeau at the end. I'm not going to drone on too much in this game. I do think that the Commanders are going to win this one. I think much like everyone else. I think this -6, though, seems to be very much like a trap line. I think people are going to put too much stock in how the Giants did last year. I think Russell Wilson at quarterback is a big step up for this team. Like I mentioned, Malik Neighbors is slowly becoming, and showed flashes last year of being an elite wide receiver. I think he makes that leap this year. And something just seems fishy about this -6. I think you're going to see some regression to the mean from the Commanders. Maybe that sophomore slump from Jaden Daniels there, and a little bit less efficiency in the run game, I think, for this Commanders team, which could rear its face here and make this game a little bit closer than people think. So I'm taking the Commanders to win this game. Kind of hard not to, but I would be weary of this spread. Another game I'm not going to spend too much time on because I think this game has potential to be a blowout here. Saints are projected to be one of the worst, if not the worst teams in football this year, and I don't have too many good things to say about any facets of the game that they play, quite honestly. I think what you're looking at from this team, from the Saints, if you're looking optimistically, is you need a 30-year-old Alvin Kamara to continue to play at the efficiency that he has in his career, and you need Chris Olave to stay healthy and lead this wide receiving group. Regardless of what happens on offense, this is one of the worst defenses in the league, really struggling against the run defense, pass rush, coverage grade not much better, and they're not doing much to stop the offenses in the NFL. Luckily, the Cardinals aren't either. They have a pretty poor defense as well, but still better than what the Saints are putting out there. I think the big mismatch in this game here is the offense and the offensive line play, frankly, with the Cardinals having the number 4 ranked pass blocking unit and the number 13 ranked run block unit. You see the Saints pass block unit come there at dead last in the league. They're not getting much help at, again, wide receiver when a guy like Chris Olave is unhealthy. And then at quarterback as well, you're throwing out Spencer Rattler there, the unit. Like, if you're not going to give any quarterback time, they're going to have a hard time succeeding, let alone Spencer Rattler, who hasn't improved much in his career. I'm looking for the Cardinals here to take another step up on offense, as I think Trey McBride at tight end has potential to be tight end 1 this year. I think Marvin Harrison Jr., a former top 5 pick at wide receiver, is going to take a really big step up in his sophomore season. And as this offensive line continues to give Kyler Murray time, I think things are all going to connect. James Conner, great running back in dual threat out of the backfield as a receiver. Again, I think the Cardinals win this game, and I do think they're going to cover this 6 on the road, as the Saints, especially the offensive performance, is going to show truly anemic. This defense, I don't think is going to be much better either. And then finally, going to Monday Night Football on a really intriguing game, especially for those in Chicago, with the Bears hosting the Vikings, slight underdogs at home here. Couple big question marks. I think a lot of them are around quarterback. You got former top 5 pick J.J. McCarthy taking the helm after missing his entire first season with a tough knee injury, but still surrounded by a ton of talent there in Minnesota. No one can forget Justin Jefferson and how great he is. Top 2 receiver in the league, no doubt, potentially the best, depending on how you rank him versus Jamar Chase. Jordan Addison, who I don't think will be playing this game because of suspension, is a great number 2 option, but even without him, Naylor is a formidable receiver there in that core, and then you got a great receiving tight end at T.J. Hockenson. At running back, you've got Aaron Jones, who has been great throughout his career, but getting a little bit older, and that's why they brought in Jordan Mason from the 49ers to help fill out that running back room. A lot of talent here, again, in Minnesota. The big question mark for that team is going to be how J.J. McCarthy plays in his first snaps in an NFL game. For the Bears on offense, a lot of questions at quarterback with number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, coming into his 3rd season. Ton of talent around him as well, although slightly less than what you're seeing in Minnesota. But at wide receiver, you've got DJ Moore, former first-round pick Rome Odunze, and then pretty high draft pick in this NFL draft, Luther Burden III at rookie wide receiver. You got Cole Kmet, who's a former second-round draft pick at tight end, and the Bears just used their first-round draft pick for Colston Loveland at tight end as well. So no shortage of talent to pass through for him. At running back, you've got DeAndre Swift and even Roschon Johnson, who's shown sparks as a dual threat running back too. The big question for the Bears outside of Caleb Williams on offense was their offensive line, which is one of the most porous pass blocking, run blocking units last year. They did a lot to address that, bringing in, I mentioned Drew Dahlman, who was the 2nd highest ranked center in the league last year from the Falcons, and a couple other key guys. I think Joe Tooney from the Chiefs, and one guy from the Rams that I can't remember his name. They took a really tentative effort to address the interior of this offensive line and give Caleb Williams time to make throws to his really talented receiving core. No one was sacked more than Caleb Williams last year, and far away had the most pressures, knockdowns, and sacks this Bears unit did. The big question mark I have is going to be the defense for both these two teams. When you look at the Minnesota roster, not a ton of names that pop out, but they have one of the most talented defensive coordinators in Brian Flores, and he really transformed this Vikings defense last year in his first season there. They had a top 5 run defense, average coverage team, and came in as a top 10 defense overall. The Bears relying on their coverage with Jalen Johnson at cornerback, Brisker, Tyreek Stevenson doing really well there too, Kevin Byard at safety. What the issue for this team is, and the Bears, is their run defensive unit, which they didn't get a ton of help in the offseason, but they get guys like Montez Sweat in the front 4 that are terrifying from a pass rush perspective. So a few holes on each side's defense. It ultimately comes down to, what do you think these offenses are going to do with these quarterbacks, and especially a new look offense with the Bears with Ben Johnson. If you believe that, like I do, that Ben Johnson is going to take all this talent and find a way to turn this into diamonds, then I think it's easy to believe the Bears are going to win this game. If you think that the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell at head coach for them can basically take any quarterback like they did with Sam Darnold and make them stars in this star-studded offense, then it's easy to see the Vikings winning this game as well. Ultimately, I'm going to bet against J.J. McCarthy going on the road under the lights in primetime in his first career NFL game and beating the Bears. I'm going to take I'm going to take Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, and the rest of the talent on this Bears offense, and hopefully not regret taking the Bears to win this game. I think they get it done at home on Monday night, and I think you're starting to see a new era in the Bears offense with Ben Johnson calling plays, but what really is driving it is all the attention and care they took in this offensive line this offseason. I think that's really going to shine and give these guys a chance to succeed, especially against the Vikings team that is coming out with a quarterback playing his first game. These two teams are going to play later in this year, obviously being in the same division, and it's going to be a different story. I'm a little bit afraid of J.J. McCarthy becoming a really good quarterback in this league, especially under head coach Kevin O'Connell, but I don't think it's right now this early on in the season, and for that reason, I'm taking the Bears here at home. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. There will be more coming out for week 1, especially Survivor. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video, and I'll catch you guys next week.